You've landed a gig. Congrats. Now it's time to ensure that you're fully prepared so that you can play your best and make a good impression so that you keep getting hired back. But what does it really mean to be prepared? In this video, I'm going to share how I prepare for gigs, focusing not on music, but on these essential soft skills that often get overlooked: punctuality, organization, and communication. This will apply especially to those of you that do jazz gigs in restaurants or background music, but it'll also apply to more formal situations or when you're the featured act at a club or at a venue. I'll walk you through the checklist and gear list that I have for every show or rehearsal or gig that I go to, as well as some tips on how to communicate effectively with your bandmates and with the person that hired you. Before we continue, I'd like to invite you to subscribe by hitting the button below. It really helps me grow the channel and supports me in bringing more videos like this to you. Thanks so much. Tip number 1, be punctual. Let's address the elephant in the room: punctuality. When you're starting out as a young musician, you might see people that get by on their musicianship alone. They're often late, but they're so good that they get hired back. But the truth is, as you enter deeper into the professional realm of musicians, this musicianship will have to be paired with professionalism. And a big part of professionalism is punctuality. Punctuality just means being on time and being prepared and being where you're supposed to be at the time that you're expected to be. In the world of professional musicians, the reality is being early is being on time is late, and being late means you won't be hired back again. Punctuality means planning for heavy traffic, long load-ins, or any other unexpected delays that might come up so that you can arrive to the gig stress-free. Stress can be so contagious to the other musicians. If you're the one arriving stressed out and your nerves are shot from being stuck in traffic and you don't have time to sound check or set up your space like you need to, you're going to be passing that on to the whole rest of the band. If you repeat this kind of behavior, it'll eventually impact your reputation and people will be less inclined to hire you. I rely heavily on Google Maps. You can use the handy arrive by feature where you can plug in the time you'd like to arrive by at the venue, and it'll tell you retroactively when you need to leave by based on traffic data accrued over the years of Google Maps keeping track of this kind of thing. If you live in a major city, I highly recommend using this arrive by function because traffic fluctuates so much during the day that if you look up where you're going to your gig at 10 a.m., that's going to be a very different reality than if you're heading out on the road at 4:30 or 5 p.m. So I highly recommend this if you live in a major city or anywhere where there's a lot of traffic. For casual gigs, I aim to be 30 to 45 minutes ahead of downbeat. And for more formal shows or gigs, I aim to be 45 to 60 minutes ahead of downbeat. And I usually plan for about a 30-minute loadout. If I'm sitting here practicing, I want to be on the road by 4 p.m., I'm going to start loading out by 3:30 p.m. When you're rushing out the door is when the biggest mistakes happen. Gear gets left behind, charts get left behind, important things get left behind when you're rushing. Give yourself the benefit of a lot of time so that you can go down your list, mental checklists, idiot checks, and make sure that you're not leaving anything crucial behind. There was once a time in college where a musician friend of mine, a tenor saxophone player, picked me up to go to a gig in Dallas. I was in Denton, Texas, and we were going to Dallas, which is about 45 minutes away, minimum. And we were late for the gig. He was late to pick me up. I was probably also running behind, if I remember correctly, that time of my life, and he picked me up without his saxophone. We didn't realize till we were halfway to the gig that he had left his horn behind. We had to go back and we ended up being massively late and probably didn't get hired back again. So don't be like him, don't be like us, be like me now and use your checklist, leave plenty of time for yourself. I actually had a gig yesterday and filmed myself loading out and wanted to give you an idea of what my setup looks like both when I'm packing out and when I'm packing the car. Let's check that out. It's time to load out for the gig. Today I'm bringing the Telecaster, putting it in my mono case, which has served me for the last 13, 14 years. It's pretty beaten to death, if you can see here. This pocket is basically destroyed, but it still works. I've got a backup cable in here. I'm not going to be using it today probably, but just as a backup, I've got it in here. Then I've already got my pedal board ready to go here. I've got all the cables I need in and out already packed away in here. And then the most magical thing of all, the ZT Lunchbox amp, which packs a serious punch, great volume, great sound. I'll give you a little tour of it. It's just got a power cable up front. If you want to come in and take a look here, it just fits in this little carrying case. That's all it needs. And it's got a really handy back panel where you can hook it up to a bigger speaker if you want, and then turn the internal speaker off. Even play a little aux input in there in case you need some music playing on your break. But just super handy, great sounding, really practical amp for gigs. I'm just gonna be playing in a restaurant, so I don't need a ton of volume. And what's great about this setup is when you've got LA or New York or any kind of city parking to deal with, you usually don't want to be taking 2 trips. So with this little amp, everything fits in 1 trip, which is really handy. So ready to go now. All right, now we're at the car, ready for the load in. Got my 2008 Toyota Prius, the true vehicle of any self-respecting musician. I've got this moving blanket here for when I've got my bigger amplifier so that if it tips over or moves around in any way, it's safe. For now, just gonna put the lunchbox here. I've also got this black tablecloth which I use to cover my gear if I need to hop inside and my gear is still in the car, or if I want to go hang out with the band after a rehearsal or a gig. In my experience, I've found that like if people can't see what's in there, anytime I've gotten stuff stolen, it's because I've left it out in plain sight. So if you use this, I'm pretty sure that you'll be safe from any thieves. So I'll keep that here. Pedal board down like this. And then this guitar usually fits across like this. It just sits like that. And then I've got this backup cable right here. In case I've got a bandmate that forgets a cable or one of mine breaks down, I've got this as a backup. And in here I've also got a backup power strip in case the venue doesn't have enough outlets, or again, a bandmate forgets a power strip. Now we're ready to go. Part 2. Communicate effectively. If you're the band leader, it's important to have your band organized. Start by creating a group thread with all the critical details: address, load-in time, and wrap time. This will be handy the day of the show, where if there's any details that anyone is unclear on, they'll be able to go back and look at the group chat without blowing you up. Also ensure that pay has been discussed and that everything is straightened out and everyone knows how much they're going to be paid and when they can expect to be paid. Most musicians are notoriously aloof when it comes to these details, so if you can stay on top of these details and communicate them effectively to your band, you'll find that people will be more inclined to hire you for gigs and be more inclined to say yes when you offer them gigs. Once you arrive at the venue, aim to present yourself as friendly and easygoing. You're likely stepping into a situation with a lot of moving parts, and you don't want to add to that stress by being late or being grouchy or having some kind of grievance. You're likely stepping into a situation with a lot of moving parts, and your job is to provide a mood and provide music that is seamless and enjoyable. And that starts with how you present yourself, how you first introduce yourself, and how you arrive at the venue. This is especially true for background gigs, but it also really helps when you're the featured act or a headlining act at a club or a venue. Regardless of the situation, bringing a pleasant and problem-solving attitude to any situation where you've been hired will help the whole night go more smoothly for everybody around you. It'll also help you get what you want out of the people working around you and make it so you can play better and make it a good hang. Now it's time to play. After a couple songs, it's a good idea to look over or gesture to the person that hired you and make sure that the balance is good and that the volume is appropriate for the space. Before you start playing, it's a good idea to make sure that anything like meals or drink tickets, anything that's a part of your compensation that's not money, is squared away for when you take a break. Break structures are typically 45 minutes on, 15 off until you get like a major break to eat your dinner or chill out. But most of the time, the set structure for one set is 45 minutes of music, 15 minutes break. Make sure to be courteous to the wait staff around you because just like you, they're employees and they're hired to make the space feel good, to make the guests feel welcome, and to create a warm ambiance wherever you're playing. As a band leader, personally, I like to talk through a quick set list when we first start these kind of jazz casual gigs. Obviously, as the night goes on, people are going to be calling tunes and it's going to become a bit more democratized. But at the very beginning, I like to have a set of 4 or 5 songs that I know we're going to play, I know are going to sound good back to back so that we can build some cohesion and start the night off on the right foot. Later in the night, we can call tunes that maybe we know a little bit less well or we're still getting to know just to experiment and have a little bit of practice on the gig. But at the beginning, we want to start off strong and let the guests know that we're in control and that they're going to have a nice night of music ahead of them. It's also important to consider the context that you're playing in. If you're in a restaurant, chances are people aren't going to want to hear more progressive jazz material like Wayne Shorter tunes or Coltrane tunes. They mostly want to hear more lyrical songs like Autumn Leaves or Fly Me to the Moon. It's obviously fun to play some of these more progressive songs on the bandstand, but a lot of the times people will want to connect with you by sharing requests or wanting to hear songs that are more familiar to them. So it's your job to welcome those, and if you don't like some of the recommendations, be polite in how you're rejecting it, but it's a really good opportunity to connect with people to play songs that they might recognize. This may translate into some tips, which will be great for the band, but also it might translate in the patrons of the restaurant or the venue communicating to the management that they really enjoyed you and want to hear you again, which will likely result in you getting hired back. This is not the time to be I hate to say elitist, but we don't want to be on the high art kick on these gigs. We're here to provide a service, which is entertainment and mood music, which I think is actually a very lofty ideal that I really believe in. Even though when I get together with my friends or play my own original music, there's a certain value set to that music. There's also a value set to playing music that is relatable and melodic and even danceable if the situation requires that. Keep that in mind when you're on the gig. Are you bringing your kind of jazz head, jazz school energy to the show? Or are you bringing entertainment, consideration for the audience, and a sense of what the room needs to hear from you? Once the evening is done and the gig is wrapping up and you've played beautifully to the audience's delight, it's time to pack things up. Make sure you're not leaving anything behind. Again, don't be in a rush. Make sure to check for music stands, guitar stands, these pesky little things that get left behind like capos, all that stuff. After you've packed up, it's a great idea to go try and make some sort of direct contact with the person that hired you, thank them for hiring you, and follow up on when exactly you should be getting paid and confirm the amount. This kind of direct contact will go a long way in establishing warmth and professionalism and will ensure your chances of getting hired again. I hope this video was helpful for you. I'm looking to explore more of these extra musical topics, the soft skills of musicians that often get overlooked in the jazz guitar community. If you enjoyed this video, let me know. If you have anything to add to the conversation, that's also welcome in the comments section below. Thanks so much and keep in touch.